All right, today we are diving deep into a world where the pressure is always on, and there is absolutely zero room for error. We're talking about managing people in Malaysia's chemical engineering sector. It's an incredible look into high stakes leadership. So, how did the best in the business not just get by, but actually thrive? And that really is the central question, isn't it? How on earth do you build a top-tier team when you're dealing with volatile materials, crazy global markets, and the need for absolute perfection day in and day out? That's a huge ask. Well, here's the thing. The answer isn't just about hiring a bunch of smart people. It's about building an entire interconnected system, a strategic framework that's designed for more than just getting the job done. It's built for resilience, for support, and maybe most importantly of all, for safety. Okay, so let's get into our first section. We're really looking at this whole challenge as a high-stakes balancing act because even one tiny misstep can have massive, massive consequences for the company and, of course, for its people. And at the very heart of this balancing act, it's all about the money. The number one challenge for any manager in this field is creating a pay structure that, on one hand, doesn't break the bank for the company, but on the other, feels totally fair and motivating to employees. It's a constant tug of war. So, this brings us to the very foundation, the bedrock of our management pyramid, pay. We're talking about direct compensation. You have to get this right because it's the first and most crucial step in that whole employer-employee relationship. And this visualizes that tension I was talking about perfectly. On one side of the scale, you've got the company's finances, the budget, the bottom line, and on the other, you have this critical need to motivate and hold on to your incredibly skilled engineers. A manager's job is to live right in the middle of that, constantly trying to keep it all in balance. And look, this isn't some simple formula you can just plug numbers into. Pay gets influenced by a whole web of different things. You've got external factors like what the global market says a chemical engineer is worth and what your competitors are paying. But then you've got all the internal stuff, which is just as complex. Things like the company's own profits, the specific job someone's doing, how well they're performing. It's a lot. Nailing that balance is the first huge piece of this puzzle. All right, let's move on because we all know a great job is about way more than just the paycheck, right? Especially in a field this demanding. We're moving up the pyramid now to talk about benefits. So, what are we really talking about when we say benefits? Well, this is a perfect way to put it. They're indirect financial rewards. It's not cash in your pocket, but it has real value, and it's all designed specifically to make an employee's life better and more secure. And if you want to know just how big a deal benefits are to these companies, get a load of this number. We are talking about 30 to 40% of their total payroll costs. That is a huge, huge investment. It tells you right away that benefits aren't just a nice little perk, they are a core piece of the strategy. Now, in Malaysia, it's pretty interesting. Benefits basically fall into two buckets. First, you've got the mandatory ones, the stuff required by law, like Social Security. But where it gets really competitive is in that second column, the voluntary benefits. This is where companies have to get strategic. If you want to attract the best of the best, you might offer things like amazing family health coverage, or maybe you'll fund their continuing education. This is how a company shows it's truly invested in its people. And that brings us to the very top of our pyramid, the absolute, without a doubt, non-negotiable peak of managing people in this industry, health and safety. This quote just nails it. In chemical engineering, you can't treat safety like a to-do list that you just tick off. No way. It has to be baked into the culture, a core value that shapes every single action and decision. And this isn't just a nice idea. In Malaysia, it's the law. The Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1994 makes this a shared responsibility. The company's job is to provide a safe workplace, the right gear, the right training, but, and this is so important, the employee's job is to use that gear correctly and follow every single rule. In an industry that runs 24/7, even managing things like shift worker fatigue becomes part of this critical partnership. It is a two-way street, written right into the law. The very definition of safety is getting bigger too. It's not just about preventing chemical spills anymore. There's a huge and growing focus on psychological safety, and that means tackling tough issues like harassment and workplace violence. A truly modern safety plan has to protect people's bodies and their minds. Okay, so let's bring this all home. We've looked at all the different pieces, so now let's see how they click together to form one single powerful strategy, the Total Rewards Playbook. And here is the most important thing to remember. These three pillars, fair pay, great benefits, and rock-solid safety, they're not a menu you can pick and choose from. They are one single interconnected system. You can't have a world-class safety culture if you're underpaying people. And the best salary in the world means nothing if your team doesn't feel safe, physically and mentally. It all has to work together. Which kind of leaves us with one big final question to chew on. In an industry like this, where the stakes are just so incredibly high, maybe a company's greatest asset isn't the product it makes, but the system it builds to protect the very people who make it all happen.